How do two civil engineers come together, start a company, and grow it to 85 people relatively quickly? Well, in this episode of our new Civil Engineering Entrepreneur series on the Civil Engineering Podcast, Gordon Greene, founder of Patel, Greene Associates, is going to tell us how him and his partner did just that. And not only how they did it, but how they use a strong mission statement that the entire company can lean on to make day-to-day decisions. Let's jump right in. This Civil Engineering Entrepreneurs series is brought to you by Big Time. Big Time is the industry-leading PSA software providing time tracking, billing, and project management for engineering firms, with the goal of getting your business back to business. You can learn more about Big Time's PSA solution at bigtime.net. All right, now I'm excited to welcome our guest to the podcast for today. Gordon Greene is a co-founder of Patel, Greene Associates, also known as PGA, down in Florida. Gordon, welcome to the Civil Engineering Podcast.
I appreciate it. Appreciate the opportunity to be here.
So, Gordon, I'm excited to talk to you. Your company has certainly been growing, and we're really focusing on civil engineering entrepreneurs in this series. And before we kind of dive into some of the business questions that I wanted to get to, I really want to just, hear about you and your company. I know the backstory is it was basically a couple of drainage engineers that kind of went out and started a business, but I'd love to hear the story from you.
Yeah, so Hiram, Patel, and I started a PGA, and we were both at PBS&J, which was the nationwide firm that were really big in Florida. So they were a successful firm, and we were there for pretty much all of our consulting careers and got to work together and learned a lot there. And they went through a buyout and some other things, and it just kind of coincided with us feeling this pull to give it a go on our own. And so we did that back in 2011. And we got started back then. It was a summer of 2011, and right out of the gate, we were able to win some projects and keep things going. But even from the very beginning, what we wanted to build was something where, we could really bring lots of good folks together and build a company where they felt appreciated for their efforts and their talents and their hard work. That's what we tried to keep going. Now that we're up to about 85, I think, now at this point across the 3 offices. So,
wow.
So far, living the dream, man.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's a big, from being 2 guys starting off, doing some consulting work to now 85 people that, you're kind of overseeing and responsible for, and leading really is got to be pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty surreal at times because, Hiram and I, we can think back to, sitting on his couch, going through legal Zoom, setting all the stuff up. Even then having the feeling of what the heck are we doing? What are we getting into? And we laugh sometimes because you almost never really lose that feeling. We're always, we've grown pretty fast. So every new thing, when we started service lines that, we didn't personally do, roadway and drainage, we knew, but we don't design bridges. We don't design signals. So, we're bringing folks into that, and, we do it and we go, well, I don't know. We don't really know what we're doing, but we know how to find good people that do know how to do it. So we're just going to trust in that ability and keep things rolling. So whatever it is, opening up a new office location, trying to build relationships with a new client, that feeling of what the heck are we doing never really leaves you. You just keep at it till you figure it out and surround yourself with really smart people to help you get there.
Yeah, for sure. Now, had either one of you had any kind of entrepreneurial experience or business ventures before this, or?
Not really. I got a little bit of that in my family. I think Hearn has a little bit of that in his family. But personally, no. I worked at the DOT in District 1 for about a year. And then, like I said, went to PBS&J, did that for almost 10 years. And I did go get an MBA. So that sort of maybe started to kindle some of that. Got an MBA here at USF. Took me longer to get that than did my engineering degree, because by then I was working full time, had small kids, studying for a PE exam, all that stuff.
Sure.
Looking back, I'm like, man, that was kind of dumb to try to take all that on at the same time, but I did and got through it. And it was kind of eye opening, and it started at least to get me thinking like, yeah, I think I could probably do that. And then it was really, once I started getting into the marketing aspects of engineering, I really turned out to have a pretty good knack for that, and enjoyed that a lot. And once it clicked that if you're good at that, and you want to go out and do your own thing, you might actually have some success doing it. Because I mean, you got to be able to go win the work. So anyway.
No, that's great. I mean, yeah, and it's just, it's inspiring to see, a couple of engineers to grow something like this. And that's why I was kind of asking about the background, because I'm sure that a lot of our listeners that may be thinking about, dipping their foot in the water in terms of starting their own business, maybe don't have any, entrepreneurial experience, and probably it makes them happy to hear you say that you didn't. I mean, obviously you got the MBA, but a lot of it is, you kind of jump in and, surround yourself, like you said, with good people and figure some things out as we go. And, one of the places I want to start here, Gordon, because I know that it's one of these things that when you work for an engineering company, you see a lot of this stuff, but you're not thinking about it from the owner's perspective. And that's kind of the company's kind of mission and vision. I think a lot of times you can look at that and say, okay, my company has a mission and vision. It reads well. It's on our website, but, not really sure why we need to have one. And I'd love for you to talk about, since you started from scratch, you kind of had to think through all this stuff and setting up like a company mission and vision. Why is that important for a company to have that?
Yeah, so when we started, we set a mission and vision, and I can't remember what it was, but it was the standard sort of we're gonna develop something to do with cost effective solutions, and it was engineering focused. And I mean, it was a good mission, but it was one I never memorized, obviously.
Right.
And so when we got together in 2018 to develop a strategic plan, we had decided then we were getting close to 50 people, and Hiram and I were starting to have that feeling of, okay, we can't just shoot from the hip anymore. We've got to, if we're going to continue to grow this thing, we're going to be 100 people, 200 people. We've got to get something down on paper, bring in some of these other great brains we have, and get a plan together. And we brought some outside folks in to help us with that. And anyways, part of that process, we redid our mission and vision. We decided we needed to redo that. And with the idea being, you want to set up a mission and vision that directs you, gives you direction in all your decisions. You need a lens through which to pass all tough decisions through, and it needs to go through that mission and vision, and that'll really help you make decisions, even the tough decisions. And so we set our mission as we exist to elevate our families, communities, and profession. And then we really like that. We go to that a lot. Our vision is that we inspire unified family professionals to humbly serve our communities with passion, purpose, and unwavering excellence. I read that one. I don't have that memorized.
Yeah,
but the mission I have memorized because it's simple. It's short and simple.
Sure.
And we go to it a lot. So I've got that memorized. One thing as we were deliberating, the wording of it, one thing we decided on is we weren't going to include engineering in the mission, because we're not just engineers. We're administrative folks, we're marketing folks, we're scientists and planners, and we're a whole family of folks that all should be striving to the mission. And I think that cuts out a pretty good group when they go to that mission and go, well, okay, I'm not really an engineer, so how do I fit into the mission? Well, you do. We're all professionals, and so we're all in this together. And I'll give you a couple examples as I was thinking through this that kind of I guess exemplifies this. So part of that mission is elevating communities. So we might ask ourselves, should we encourage our folks to be active in their communities? Well, if you ask that of any company, they say, oh yeah, sure, absolutely, we should do that. But what are you actually doing to encourage that? What are you doing to actually see some results from that? Are you the leaders leading by example? Or are you just saying that sounds great, we should do that, but then you're not doing it yourself? So we, as a group of leaders, we're always coming back to, we're going to ask folks to do stuff like extra stuff, we better be doing it. And so we do. And then we've identified folks that are like especially passionate about uh, charitable organizations or community, like civic participation, being a part of the community. And we just empower them and let them run with that sort of thing, find opportunities for us to get plugged in. And then we put our money where our mouth is. If someone says, I want to take some time and do this, well, we encourage them to do it. And so that's the way we kind of live that mission. And we try to promote those things and highlight when folks do that stuff so that everybody sees that we're living our mission, and elevating our profession. So we can be involved in groups like ASCE. We do a lot of work there. We stay involved, trying to be part of the change to make things better, or make positive changes in our profession. And then get involved with young folks, the younger generation. We have a lot of high school interns, college interns. Even if we don't necessarily have a whole lot for them to do, we tend to just bring them on and get them plugged in and get them trained up and find out if they're the next rock star. And we want them attached to civil engineering. A lot of them come out, they want to be, mechanical engineers or some of these other things that sound a little sexier. We go, no, man, civil engineering, design of roads, that's where it's at. Join the club. And we've had some pretty good success doing that. And then we just come back to that mission over and over again. So the folks see that we're living the mission, and you get that buy-in. And then the more you get buy-in from folks, then they just do it on their own.
That's great. I mean, I think what I really like about that philosophy is it's really a functional mission in that you're using it all the time to make decisions, which is great because, running a business, you're constantly making decisions, and it gives you kind of a common theme to run with on those decisions to kind of make sure that your company as a whole is kind of running in the same direction. And really, the more you grow, you can still keep that very simple mission, and everybody can kind of, latch on to that kind of culture, that philosophy, and say, listen, we know what the deal is here. It's very simple. We all have it. We all know what it is. So how can we, impact that, or how will this decision affect that? So I think that's great. And the one thing that really comes out for me when you read the vision statement and recite the mission statement is community. I mean, it's obvious that community is important to you, and everyone in your company. And I think personally, just in the world of civil engineering, that's a great word because, we help to build communities. Like you said, it's not just engineers. I mean, it's every single person walking outside down the street. I mean, my kids ask me what civil engineers do, and I just tell them, go look outside. I mean, basically. So I think having the word community in there is a really great part of it, for those reasons. So that's great. And so you talked about this a little bit in terms of, a lot of times the mission and vision statement is lofty and it's something that's up there, and, you need to bring it down to the ground often. It seems like you do that because you lean on it so much. So if you're in the room with some people, other people there in the company, you're talking about something, it may just come up. Is that right?
Yes, exactly. And you talk about the vision being lofty, and, I just read the mission and vision, and they're not a prescription. Sometimes you see a vision as we want to be this thing in this location, that sort of thing. And it may be, you may be your small company and you want to be some leading thing in the Florida, the Southeast. And it seems like, man, that's going to take forever to get there. Right. And so it can be discouraging. And that's the point you're making.
Yeah.
So we kind of steered away from that in terms of mission and vision, but we built our strategic plan. And that's kind of, I think, more in line with what you're getting at, which is, we set, some of our goals in the strategic plan, it's a 5-year plan, they're lofty. But, by coming back to it over and over again and taking those small bites out of it, I guess that's why that's a little more effective in our eyes. Instead of taking a vision statement and breaking it up, it obviously is more logical to say, hey, we've got this strategic plan with all these objectives. When you break those objectives down into sub-objectives that we can get this stuff done this year, and that'll help us get this part of it done next year, so on and so forth, and you get the whole thing achieved. Well, people can get their head wrapped around that, and instead of trying to get the whole thing done, they get, just a piece of it done. Get right. One domino to fall, and the rest will come after that if we just keep at it.
Yeah. That's great. No, I like it. I mean, really, the strategic plan is kind of really where you're headed, and the vision and mission are something that you can kind of have around you at all times to, keep you on track for that,
Yep. Yep.
which is great. I mean, I think having a mission and vision, especially the mission, like you said, that's really simple, that can just kind of permeate everything you do is really valuable because you need some kind of common thread, especially as you're starting to have different offices now. And, someone gets hired into another office and then there's two other offices that they don't know who the people are. But, everyone knows that they have the same mission and they're getting that in their vernacular and in their thought processes. And I think that that's really super valuable. So, all that being said, Gordon, let's talk a little bit about something that can sometimes be scary, which is meetings. I mean, you start your company with a couple of people and now you're at 85 people, different divisions, different departments. What is your philosophy around meetings in terms of how often you have them? Do you let your department managers kind of pick that? How does that work?
Yeah. I mean, we certainly have meetings, but I hate wasting time. I'm all about a short meeting. Whatever, if we're going to spend time on something, there should be some value in it. So, yeah, we got tons of meetings. A lot of them are, weekly, like a roadway group. They have a weekly workload meeting. It's 15 to 20 minutes. It's just running through the list. We don't need a full detailed report of everything you're working on. That's not the point of the meeting. The point of the meeting is tell me if you're too busy or you're too light, and then move on. We'll get it done. I mean, they'll have 20 something people in that meeting and they get it done in 15, 20 minutes, achieve the purpose of the meeting, and then everybody get back to work. So that we really try to reinforce that we do need to have meetings. We've got to get together. Of course, it's virtually now, but even stuff like that was always virtually for us. There's no point in bringing everybody in a room just to say that stuff. Just jump on Teams or on a conference call and, work smarter, not harder, right?
Yep.
So that's how we handle a lot of that stuff. A lot of our bigger groups will have staff meetings, so nothing, super novel there. But again, there's certain goals we have with those meetings of sharing information. Maybe we take a longer look out there, right, to make sure nothing's falling through the cracks. What sort of submittals do we have coming up?
Right.
People got vacations. You hash all that stuff out and move folks around as needed before it becomes a problem.
And do you like with these meetings as your company grows, are you kind of like go to the division managers and say, you do what you feel is best for your department, or do you have like
Sure.
a standard, okay, in terms of like meet when you think you need to meet type of thing?
Oh yeah, no, I mean, the folks we have in those roles, those group managers, there's no hand holding or anything. If it's their group to run.
Yep.
But obviously we talk to each other quite a bit too. So there's best practices and we try to build some consistency. But everybody kind of does their thing, whatever makes most sense with their group.
Okay.
Yeah. So plenty of freedom.
Yeah, no, that's great. And one of the things I wanted to touch base a little bit on, following up on the meetings idea, is just kind of like metrics in general. I mean, you start off small, so you need to have enough workload for a couple of people. Now you have 85 people, you got to keep everybody busy, you keep kind of the train moving. What are some things that you do as the leader, or some things that you look at, or measurements to be able to say, hey, we're on pace, we need more work, we have too much work, we got to hire? How does that process look for you just in general?
So we've got something we call a marketing sales plan, or MSP for short. So we've been using that for a while, actually. But when we were much smaller, it's a spreadsheet that takes our backlog, hard backlog, soft backlog. And then recently we've also put like our targeted pursuits and with a chance of success, all that good stuff in there. And then we project it out quarterly. We didn't always do that. What we did originally was just listed our backlog. And if, we knew, we could do the calculation and say, well, we need $1 million a year in backlog. And if we've got $2 million in backlog, yippee, we got 2 years. That's fantastic. But what we found is we got larger and larger, that didn't provide as much value as it used to. We'd find that, well, yeah, so we've got all this backlog, but some of it's kind of sitting way out there and we can't get to it. They're not letting us work on it, or it's just a very long-term project, whatever. So we started breaking it up and saying, okay, I know my schedule, so I got $1 million on this project. I should be able to bill a couple $100,000 based on my schedule next quarter, so on and so forth. As we got bigger, that got to be such a cumbersome process that we just weren't doing it. Nobody wanted to do it. It was a huge pain in the butt. It took too much time. And then finally last year, that was one of our major objectives, was to, again, work smarter, not harder. We had gone to Dell Tech Jira, so we were already taking advantage of some of the power there. But one thing about a Jira is it comes the way it comes, right? With the tools they built or widgets they built. And if you want anything custom, you got to open up the pocketbook. Well, that irritates me. So
this is an accounting system, right? Just so everyone who doesn't know.
Yes, it's our financial management software. It ain't cheap to begin with, and then they kind of hold you, binge over a little bit when you need something customized. Luckily for us, our controller is married to a computer programmer who kind of has a side hustle, and we've had a lot of success. He dove into that Jira database and built us a sister database that allows us to build some custom reports. So we built our MSP in a database, have it linked to a Jira, and all of our PMs develop payout curves for their projects. So then all our controller has to do literally just click a button. As long as all that information's in there, which that takes some time. We have to encourage our PMs to take some time to develop a payout curve, but we should be doing that anyway, right? For our projects. And then you click that button and it projects everything out. So now we can look at it and go, okay, the next quarter we need $3 million ideally. We've got 5 showing up here. Oof. Well, those payout curves are right. We're about to be really busy. Or the reverse, right? Maybe that third quarter, the numbers are looking a little low. We can do some marketing to fill those gaps. But anyway, it gets the conversation going.
Sure.
You start thinking about, are you in good shape or not, and what can you do to fix whatever the issue might be. So that's kind of been on my plate here recently, driving that and coordinating that, making sure that stays up to date. So that still is a very important metric for us that we have spent quite a bit of time on developing the tool, and then spend a decent amount of time, but not too much time keeping up to date. Because I've always found that's the problem. If you make something too cumbersome, no one's going to use it.
Yeah.
And then what good is it?
Yeah, no, it's a good point. It's like kind of that balance between, you want something that's effective, but that's not overwhelming to the point that you're not going to keep it up, and then therefore it's not going to be effective. So
and you pay engineers to be engineers, not accountants.
Right.
So we try to limit the amount of accounting that our project managers and engineers have to do, because that's not what we pay them to do.
Yeah, no, that's great. But it sounds like, you've got something going there in terms of having, that computer programmer getting involved. Really what I found in business is that, maybe you don't need a ton of different programs, but you do need some really key metrics that you really do need to keep an eye on that can really drive the company. And if you miss something like that, it's a problem. So but again, with any company, you grow, you figure out what those metrics are. And then just like you did, you build something to be able to help you track it, as successfully as you can. Right.
Well, and it's neat to look at, other metrics like revenue factor or revenue per employee and those things. And that's one of our goals for this year, is to get more into that, benchmark them. And it's good to do that. But at the end of the day, it's cash flow is king.
Yep.
And if you mess up your cash flow, I don't care what your other metrics look like, you're done. So we focus a lot on that.
Yeah. Well, no, listen, it's, it's like that 80-20 rule. There's a couple things that really matter, and everything else is a lot less important. And, cash is one of those things that really matters. And I feel like if you have a heartbeat on that, you're going to be in relatively good shape.
Well, I can't remember who said this, and I probably won't say it quite right, but we you hear from our mission, and if you were to sit in some of our meetings, hopefully you would glean this. Making money and profit and all that stuff is not our primary objective, but cash and profit are kind of like air. You don't really think about them. That's not your driving thing. But if you run out of air or you run out of cash, you're dead.
Yeah.
So you do have to pay attention.
Yeah, no, it's a really important point. I mean, we try to be, really good here about building culture and interacting with our people and, focusing on their goals. And that's all good stuff. You want to do that, but at the end of the day too, you need to bring in dollars to be able to do everything we want to do. Like you said, impacting
Yep.
communities. You want to impact
Yep.
the community, you got to be alive. You got to have, having that cash flow can help you to do great things in a
Yep.
community. And so it's kind of like one goes with the other, and maybe you're not focused so much on the cash or some great things you want to do, but that's also a driver of being able to
Yes.
do that, and we need to keep that in mind. And that's the important part of course, running a business. Now, getting along in a little bit more with kind of the runnings of the business. In all businesses, obviously, including civil engineering, there are some real core procedures or processes that you need to follow to make the company successful, to make the company work. Maybe a good process for hiring people, for executing projects, um, you know, project kickoff meetings, et cetera, whatever it comes down to. Does your company put emphasis on kind of capturing some of these key processes so that they can be consistent through the company, especially as you grow?
Yeah. So we're always soliciting feedback and trying to keep a pulse on things to see where developing some sort of process would provide value and benefit. And that's where we try to focus our efforts in those areas. The idea of a process is to provide comfort and confidence for those doing it, that they're doing the right thing and they're doing it the right way. It's never to create drudgery, this feeling of drudgery, like, okay, I'm going through these motions, but I don't really know why, and I don't like it. So we always try to explain why. If we're going to introduce something new, we try to explain why we're doing it. What's the value to the company, to you individually, maybe to somebody else that you should care about? Why are we doing this? And then, if we do that, it becomes a much easier sell, and you get buy-in on people doing it. And then maybe it takes some extra effort to do a certain process, and people will do it if they understand the why. And then we just try to make it as efficient as possible. So, like, going back to the MSP, that's important. I mean, that's cash flow. That's like one of the most important things. But what we were doing became so inefficient that, as important as it was, we weren't doing it. And so, even when everybody understands the why and the importance, if you don't make it efficient, then the process won't be followed. So it's important to spend time doing that too. And you mentioned hiring. So when I think hiring, I think of a couple things. I think of the recruiting side, getting them in the door, and then the onboarding. And I highlight those two things because from a process standpoint, we might approach those two different ways. So hiring, we might be a little looser. If it's some sort of strategic hire and you kind of got to go incognito and they have meetings to the side, you're not going to probably let a larger group in on that initially. And you might have a smaller group, pursuing that person and doing whatever you got to do, right, to get them in. Whereas, an EI at a college, it's a little more process based, right? We need to get a bunch of resumes. We need to have a team review them, and that's a process. And we've got a process for that and how we do it. And we've got an HR coordinator that helps us, keep to the process. And then onboarding on the flip side, no matter who you hire, whether it's that strategic hire or it's the EI, the onboarding should be like process driven, right? Like we should be doing that pretty much the same way every time. Otherwise, you're going to forget a couple things on this person. You're going to forget a couple things on this person, and not everybody's getting the same start in the company. And you're forgetting things to let them know about or whatever, and you hinder their smooth transition into the company. So onboarding, we've got checklist, and we've got a very established process for how we do that. But
Yeah,
we're
that's
always
that's
we're
great.
always refining it too. You do it a few times and you go, well, this isn't really working. And we're finding that we're missing these couple of things. And so you fix it, and then the
Right.
process is made better.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, listen, I think that one of the benefits of being an engineer and an entrepreneur, at least from my own experience, is the process side of things. I feel pretty comfortable with that in terms of, if I see something like, for example, onboarding that's just highly critical that it be consistent across the company, let's put a good process in place. And I feel like our analytical kind of frameworks can help us to do that. But to your point, it's important to continuously update those processes, especially as the company grows. I mean, something that works for a company that's 15 people, obviously with 80 people, 85 people may not work the same. So it's just like a whole nother facet of building a business is the procedures and processes and, when you need it, and then, how to continue to expand it with everything else.
Well, and putting people in charge of paying attention to it, because 80 something people and growing, Howard and I can't monitor all that stuff all the way down to the onboarding process. So we're always happy to provide input if someone wants to make a change and they want our input. But you need somebody else paying attention to that, and so every chance we get, we're trying to empower one of our folks to take ownership of this process or that process or whatever, and if changes need to be made, then they know the process better than anyone else, so let's make the change.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think one of the big challenges with engineers in general is, we struggle kind of delegating and giving work away just because we start our careers really in the details. I mean, that's how we come up. There's no way around that. But you seem to me like someone who is comfortable giving stuff away and delegating. Is that true, or is that something you had to work on a lot?
Well, I had to work on it a lot. I've gotten better at it, mostly out of necessity. There's only so many hours in the day, and I don't like letting people down. So when I see that I'm letting people down because I'm not getting to something that I'm responsible for, then I need to start thinking about maybe I shouldn't be responsible for that anymore, because now I'm failing. Someone else can do this better than I can. I mean, like once we had enough drainage engineers, we needed someone to manage the drainage group. And so I took that on early. Well, as soon as we had enough people that we needed, that we could call ourselves a group, I did that. And I just found that I was not a very effective drainage group manager after a while, because I had projects to manage. I had duties, to run the company. And I was like, I gotta hand this off. And that was kind of big, because I love drainage, and drainage is one of the things that we are, known for. We built our reputation on being innovative, great drainage engineers. But we found the right guy, and as soon as we were like, okay, he's the one, I handed that sucker off and never looked back. And of course, he's a 10 times better drainage group manager than I was, for sure, because he gets to focus his attention on that. Right. And I just try to stay out of his way.
Yeah, no, it's certainly a skill that is learned. I think I think a lot of entrepreneurs, and like I said, engineers and entrepreneurs, that's a big deal, at least from what I've seen. And what would you say, Gordon, if someone asked you in terms of like your day-to-day role in the company today? Like, what is your job there? How do you see your job?
Well, we still wear, quite a few hats. So I've got projects that I manage. I have projects where I'm responsible for the drainage design. And so I've got to attend to those things. But I also have several leadership responsibilities, to where I'm solving problems there. Something pops up and I need to make a decision. So Hiron and I share a lot of those responsibilities, and we've worked out a pretty good, just for efficiency's sake and practicality's sake, here's some things that you'd probably go to Hiron on, here are some things you probably go to Gordon on. And there's some things where the both of us get together, or all the owners get together, and we make those decisions. So yeah, it's a day full of 5 to 10 minute tasks from start to finish of, let me help make this decision. Let me make this decision and get someone going on this drainage or this design change, and a lot of that.
Yeah, for sure. Now, in order to grow this company further, maybe to hundreds of people, do you feel like you'll be stepping away completely from project work? And is that something you are okay with, or would you rather stay engaged at some level?
Well, I'm okay with it. We were pretty adamant that Hiron and I really needed to do that, like even when we set up the strategic plan 2 years ago. And obviously there's some wisdom in that, but at the same time, we've got really good client relationships, and where we're kind of at right now is it's a little foolish to just step away.
Sure.
This past year, a project opportunity came up, and it it just didn't make sense for anyone else to pursue it than me because of my relationships and some of my experience and stuff like that. And so I did it. So 2021, I got a lot of project stuff that I got to do. But that's okay, because I'm going to rely on the team a lot. Rather, I might not roll my sleeves up and get much into the, obviously the production of the project. I go months without opening MicroStation anymore, which makes me sad when I think about it, because I came up doing that stuff and I really, really enjoyed it, but I had to give that up a while ago. But still get into the design. And, so we go back and forth, but at this point I'm kind of like, you do need to stay somewhat sharp technically. Now, if we're 2,000 or 3,000 people, 20 years from now, then that's probably might be kind of silly at that point for me to be getting into projects. But I would say for the next little while, we'll still be plugged in a little bit, because we're still marketing. And if you're marketing, you gotta be sharp. If we get to the point where some big engineering firm and I'm not even really marketing anymore, I'm just,
managing,
doing whatever. I don't even see, that's the thing. And I don't even know what does the person do at the top of a 2000. I don't know. We'll figure it out if we get there, I guess. But
well, you know what? You'll make your own way. You'll do whatever you want to do, quite frankly.
We'll do what makes sense, right?
That's the beauty of entrepreneurship. Every company's different. People run different companies different ways, even if they're both civil engineering companies. Right. And I think I knew a CEO of like a 300 or 400 person civil engineering company, and he was still getting involved in the road projects. I mean, listen, like you said, you have a lot of wisdom. You guys are talented drainage engineers. That's why you started the business, which means that, even if it means someone coming into your office and showing you a plan and saying, Gordon, what do you think we should do here? We're getting started in this project. That may be your technical contribution, but that's a big contribution, right? Because it almost would be like not a good move to not lean on that wisdom of those leaders because of the technical background that they have. So I think that that's one of those things in civil engineering that really every business has to just see how much of the owners are going to be doing the technical stuff. There's really no wrong or right answer. It just depends on like a million different things. But I think you have a really good handle in terms of, I think the mission, the vision there of like, permeating that through the company is really awesome. Using it to make decisions is really awesome. That's not something I've heard a lot of people do, but it just makes a ton of sense. So it's really good to hear that. And, it's excited to hear you grow. So we're going to take a break right now. I'm going to come back with Gordon, and Gordon, we're going to put you on the hot seat for a few last questions. Is that all right?
That sounds good.
All right, we're back with Gordon Greene, co-founder, Patel, Greene Associates. We've been talking about, growing civil engineering business, getting into a lot of interesting aspects of it. But now, Gordon, we're going to put you on what we like to call the civil engineering hot seat, where we're going to throw some career-related questions at you. So here we go. First question, Gordon, are there any specific rituals that you practice every day? For example, maybe it's something you do every morning or at lunchtime, or something that you do consistently on a daily basis that's helped to contribute to your success?
Well, I can tell you for about the last year, before that, no. Before that, it was work as much as I possibly can, as much of the day as I can. And that'll wear you out.
Yeah.
That'll wear you out. And so what I've been doing for a little over a year is I've got a routine, and I do think it's helped me get the most out of my day outside of just time I spend on the business. So I get up, I have a quiet time where I do pray and I read my Bible every morning, because that was one area of my life where I was certainly negligent.
Okay.
So I said, I'm going to do that. That's the very first thing I'm going to do every day. So if I neglected the rest of the day, I got that done in the morning. And then I go to the gym to try to take care of myself, because I'm almost 39, and I feel great now. But before that, I'm like, I'm 37, but I feel like maybe 57 some days, and so I made that correction. And then that leaves the rest of my day just balancing time between my family, where I do try to make sure I'm giving them some of my time. And then the rest is work, man. The rest I fit as much work as I possibly can each day to accomplish as much as I can. And I'm a big to-do list guy. So I always look at my to-do list each morning, then cry a little bit each night when I realize I got about half of it done.
Right.
Shove it to the next day and give it a go the next day.
Yeah. So in terms of that routine, was it something that where you were just kind of getting worn down? You said, I got to make a change, or
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It's well, so you didn't ask about work-life balance, which I kind of appreciate because, I think there's a varied understanding of what that is.
Yeah.
My my understanding of work-life balance is everybody's got their own, right?
Yeah.
And I like to work, so my work-life balance is there's going to be a lot of work in it, but there was probably too much, and it
Yeah.
was it was it was definitely imbalanced. So this was my way of defining my work-life balance, which does include a lot of work, but it includes making some time for some other things that are important in my life.
Yeah, that's great. And it's good to hear that you became aware of that and then you took some steps to put some habits in place. I mean, I think it's all about creating kind of good habits, especially for entrepreneurs, or else, we will get kind of burnt out and we got to put some limits on things. But at the same time, like, everyone's different. Like my wife is a civil engineer. She has a municipal job. Like her work-life balance looks different than mine and where I'm, building a business. So, you kind of have to see where you're at, but you do have to keep an eye on things, like you said,
Yeah.
or else, you can run
You have
yourself
to give
out.
yourself boundaries because I used to, whenever it would start getting crazy, my wife would ask what's going on. And, it might be some submittal or some big presentation. And once that was over, she would go, okay, it's over. I go, well, hon, I could work. I have enough to do. I could work 100 hours every week and still not get it all done.
Right.
I just have to stop at some point. Um, but even without boundaries, you're working 60, 70 week after week after week after week.
Yeah.
It'll take a toll.
Yeah, it's interesting. I started like I think it was a couple years ago. I started doing some like meditation in the morning because I actually interviewed a woman up here in New Jersey who started her own civil engineering firm, and she was like really going 100 miles an hour in her. I think it was her spouse convinced her to meditate, so she started this program. So I started doing it, and when I started learning about it, someone explained like if you want to think about what meditation is, like imagine you're falling through the air, but then there's no ground to catch you, which is like an interesting thing to think about. Like you're falling and there's no ground. Like, is that cool? Is that bad? Is that good? And I was talking to an engineer about that and about the idea of productivity and being productive. And I'm like, you think about it, like you're never done. Right. So like if you're like running 100 miles an hour to try to be done, realize just stop right now and realize that nothing ends. Like it's not a race that you're running that's going to end because you're going to have a million things to do the next day. So it's kind of like you just need to be productive, maybe prioritize well, get a good chunk of things done, and then re-gear up for the next day and take care of yourself.
Yep.
And I think that's one of the things that a lot of people in the business world are running towards something, but what they realize is there's no end to the race, like,
Yep.
and you got to kind of keep that in mind. So
It only took me 9 years. Plus, I was pretty much the same way at PBS and J. So I don't know, 20. It only took me 20 years to figure it out.
yeah, exactly. I don't even think I'm 100% there yet, but I'm getting close. All right. So Gordon, what's one book that you might recommend, not necessarily for engineers, but just a book that you found to be helpful in your personal or professional development?
Yeah, I always enjoyed Jim Collins' Good to Great. I know that's kind of cliche, but it really is a good book. And I go back to a lot of the lessons there, especially in terms of leading a company. The difference between that 4-star leader and the 5-star leader, they look a lot alike, but the 5-star leader, when they lead the company, they leave it so that it can be better than when they were running it. And so
Right.
that's what Hiron and I strive to be. We, at some point when we leave PGA, we want it to continue on and continue to be even greater, rather than we leave and we take that greatness with us, if there is any greatness in us at all, and then the company completely fails because we were just 4-star leaders. So anyway,
No, that's great.
That's a good book.
I appreciate that because it is a good book, and for some reason it hasn't come up that much here on the podcast, so it was good to hear it now and kind of reinforce that. All right, so Gordon, thinking back on kind of your managers of the past, and not to name any names, but just thinking about it, there's always managers that stick out for you. Where like, yeah, that person was a great manager. I really enjoyed working for that person. If you had a manager that was one of your favorite or a couple of favorites, what made them great? Like, were there certain characteristics or traits that you remember about them that made them that you really enjoyed working for them?
Well, as far as direct supervisors, I mean, I had some good ones. And what I really appreciated about them, even if they weren't maybe great in the way you're thinking, they were great in that they at least recognized that I could do the job, and they really left me alone to run with stuff and learn things that were probably a little ahead of what I should have been doing at whatever level in my career, which allowed me to, advance a little quicker or really accelerate my learning.
Sure.
But it was really, along what you're thinking, it was really folks that we now have working at PGA, which is, still very surreal for me. So I'll name those names, but David Long's with us. He really kind of hired me way back. I mean, he's known me since I was, 18, 19 years old, working at DOT and at PBS&J. And he's like, his approach to leadership is what we tried to embody, which is surrounding yourself with those good, smart people and letting them do their jobs, get them what they need. And we say this all the time, especially when we're recruiting, like a strategic hire, especially is, we're not going to get in your way. We already know you're smart and we know you're great.
Right.
We just want you over here so that you can tell me what you need to be great. And then I'm going to get the heck out of your way unless you need me. I didn't hire you to get in your way. Right.
Right.
And so, that's one of the many lessons I learned from Dave, and top of just treating people with kindness. I mean, that's a big thing for us is kindness to one another. Obviously to our clients and others. And that's a big deal, is just being good people, and how we treat people. And that, that I've never, except at a softball game, I've never seen Dave yell or get mad at anyone. And then Tim Polk is our chief drainage engineer. And he was, one of my mentors again, from when I was a kid. And now he's been with us 5 years now. Dave's been with us about 5 years as well. These are some of my mentors on how you approach a project, again, how you treat other people, the efforts that you put into finding the right solution. That they led by example in those areas. And now we were able to bring them in here, and they share that wisdom and guidance with the young engineers we have here today. That's pretty cool.
That's awesome. All right, I got one final question here for you, Gordon. We call it the civil engineering career elevator advice question. If you got into an elevator with a civil engineer and you had about 30 to 40 seconds with him or her, and you had to give some kind of career advice in that short period of time, what would you tell them?
Well, I would just, I don't know, work your butt off. I could only tell people what I did, and that is do the project that nobody else wants to do. Put the extra time in, especially when you're young, unless you get married really young like I did. But even then, that didn't stop me to the detriment of my wife. But, work, man, just work. There's a lot to learn. None of it's incredibly complicated, but there's just a lot. There's a lot to learn outside of the technical stuff even. So put the time in, and you will blow past your peers.
Yeah, for sure. And listen, there are so many opportunities in the civil engineering world now, and just it's going to keep going on, that if you just keep your eyes open, there's going to be something there. Like Gordon says, you can jump on it. There's going to be things that come up. Do you want this? Do you want to try this? Do you want to try this? And that was my philosophy too, was yes, I'll try it. Sure, I'll try it. And, and that's how you get out there. That's how you make a name for yourself. And that's how, maybe one day, you end up building a company yourself. And that's obviously, Gordon's proof of that. So Gordon Greene, thank you so much for spending some time with us here on the Civil Engineering Podcast. It was really kind of a thrill to get to chat with you about what you're doing there. And I wish all of you there the best.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you very much.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Civil Engineering Podcast on YouTube, produced by the Engineering Management Institute. We're always looking for new ways to help engineers become effective managers and leaders. You can view all of our content on our website at engineeringmanagementinstitute.org, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel here for our weekly videos. Until next time, please continue to engineer your own success.